Donald Trump's sanctuary cities. So the U.S. District Judge from San Francisco, William Orrick, he imposed a nationwide injunction against Donald Trump's January 25th executive order that was authorizing Jeff Sessions, the Attorney General, to withhold federal grant money from quote unquote sanctuary cities. Orrick called, and this is according to the Washington Post, Orrick called the order broad and vague and essentially said that San Francisco is likely to prevail. And because San Francisco is likely to prevail in this issue, he put a blanket hold, a nationwide injunction against it. So in the proceedings, the government's lawyers suggested that cities and towns were overreacting to the order because, quote, federal officials have not yet defined sanctuary cities or moved to withhold any funding from them. It's interesting. Well, actually, before I get into my commentary, let me give you one last quote that I think is very pertinent. And this is from the judge. He said, quote, the result of the schizophrenic approach to the order is that the county's worst fears are not allayed and the counties reasonably fear enforcement under the order. The threat of the order and the uncertainty it is causing impermissibly interferes with the county's ability to operate and to provide key services and to plan for the future and to budget. Now, this is his justification. So it's not a qualitative or it's not a moral based decision, right? He's not making a judgment call as to whether or not this is something the president should do. He's saying that because of the nature of the threat that hangs over these counties, they're unable to do their jobs. They're unable to plan long term because of this looming and this pending threat that's hanging over their head. That's number one. So he's not making a judgment call on it, but he has put a blanket hold. This is fascinating. This is fascinating because it's another addition to the loss column for Donald Trump. And it's fascinating because it's a demonstration of our system at work and seeing how the judiciary is able to hold the White House accountable, checks and balances. That's what they're there for in the first place. In context, or juxtaposed rather, to Jeff Sessions making the commentary about some judge on an island in the Pacific being able to put a hold on what on the president's agenda. And yes, this is right. This is the ability of the judiciary, and this is what they're here to do. Now, this doesn't mean that in the long run, Donald Trump won't be able to do this. But as we stand right now, this is what it is. I also found it interesting that in the list of cities that were included in this, you don't really hear, we didn't really hear a lot about Boston. In response to the January 25th executive order, Mayor Marty Walsh, he was very vocal in terms of being willing to challenge the federal government on the loss of funds in order to force Boston to not be a sanctuary city. I find it's interesting that they are not involved in this and that it's not included because it was a direct challenge to the Trump administration and other cities. San Francisco gave a direct challenge to the president, and not only a direct challenge to the moral character of the actual executive order, but a challenge to the underlying premise that sanctuary cities are inherently dangerous. Right. We've gotten to this place where facts don't matter. And simply because Donald Trump can say that sanctuary cities are uniquely dangerous, people are accepting that at face value. And we've seen the data. Many of the mayors have come out and promoted their cities and saying that even in spite of them being sanctuary cities, their cities are overwhelmingly safe. So we'll be definitely interested in seeing how this executive order being placed on hold, how this plays out. And will the government challenge it? I believe, obviously, they will. What's going to be the final result? We don't know.